Get ready for more valuable financial insights from Northern California's premier retirement income planners, Ahmad and Jim Files, owners of Peak Financial Freedom Group. For more information, go to peakfin.com. And now, here's Dan and Jim.
We'd like to welcome you to the Peak Financial Freedom Hour. My name is Dan Ahmad. I'm here with my partner, Jim Files, and we are so lucky to have such loyal listeners. We'd like to thank you all. Many people have been listening to us for years and years and years, and then we get the chance to meet them. They come in for a second opinion, and they want their free retirement income plan. So it's kind of cool when that happens, and just want to make sure you can call in. You can schedule your complimentary meeting and get a free retirement income plan. Just dial pound 250 on your cell phone and say the keyword money, pound 250 and say the keyword money. And we love to be able to meet with you to go over your financial situation, your family, whatever it is you're trying to achieve. You can also listen to the recorded versions through our podcast. You can also watch us as we're recording the radio show on our YouTube channel, because we video it as well. And we have a lot of data on our website. We try to educate you. You can also sign up if you'd like, call in and see if you're able to get into one of our free dinner workshops. And they're at some of the best gourmet restaurants in Sacramento. So you can come and get a free dinner on us. That's pound 250 and say the keyword money. Jim, I think, a lot of people are worried about their money. And when you look at all those worries, I think a lot of it can be mitigated through planning, of course, but this just through a little bit of wisdom. So why don't you start it off with quotes of the week and what you think is important for people to kind of focus on globally, and then we can drill down to the micro level.
Yeah, here's a quote that kind of dovetails into what we do here every day, Dan. It says, "Start facing your problems head on. It isn't your problems that define you, but how you react to them and recover from them." And that has a lot to do with what you just mentioned, because problems or concerns kind of depends on how you define it. People are concerned right now with the fact that the market's at an all-time high. They're concerned if they're getting ready to retire or they're in retirement. What happens if the market, I shouldn't say what happens if the market drops, what happens when the market drops, and how catastrophic will that be to their portfolio and to their income needs in the future. They're concerned about inflation, Dan. They're concerned about long-term care expenses in the future. They're concerned about how do they generate income that will never, ever run out. They're concerned about leaving money to their kids, or as importantly, or maybe more importantly, their grandchildren. They're concerned about how do they help their children or grandchildren while they're living, if they possibly can. So everybody has these concerns or these problems that are haunting them every night, and they don't know how to solve them. And we pitch here all the time, not about products here, or not about investments, but about a full retirement plan. Because if you have a full retirement plan, an income plan, a tax plan, a legacy plan, knowing where your income is going to come every month and every year for the rest of your life, will the income increase? Will it decrease? Will it ever go away? How much of that income is actually guaranteed and will never run out? If you have a risk plan, how much could you lose based in the next market crash? If you had a fee plan, how much are you paying in fees? If you had a tax plan, what's your after-tax income going to be every month and every year for the rest of your life? And that maintain, or is that enough cash flow to maintain your budget? What about leaving money to the kids? And all those things, Dan, are what we do. And it's not about the investments. It's about building a plan to make sure the plan tells us where to place the money.
Well, we're talking today about common money mistakes, and you actually jumped the gun and went into number one, which is one of the biggest mistakes, is not having a plan, Mr. Files. Yeah, so somehow you didn't even know that I actually added that to the list. That's the first thing. So, it just shows that that's how we think. That's how you think. First and foremost, we don't even have to plan it. The whole goal is to make sure people don't make mistakes with the money. In fact, one of the biggest things you always say is people are afraid they're going to make a financial mistake that will hurt and or ruin their retirement, and they want to try to guard against that. But without the proper information, education, how in the heck can they even come close to knowing how to do it? So we find that, and this is 60 years plus of combined experience you and I have, we find the only thing that can help the vast majority, if not every retiree, worry less about their money is having an actual plan in writing. Every single thing about your money, not the statements. And I know a lot of people are driving around or at their house listening to this and they're saying, oh, I have a plan. Well, you have an account, or most likely you have multiple accounts. You might have many multiple accounts, and it makes it even harder to understand. But those account statements, that's not a plan. That's just reporting how your assets have behaved over the last month or 3 months. A plan is what Jim had talked about earlier. A plan is in writing showing how much risk you're taking right now, meaning if the market crashes, and I think we need to talk about that a little bit. And the market is more than twice as valued right now as the average since 1871, which means we're in a bubble. So we have to be able to show the risk you're taking now, and then make sure you modify your portfolio to the risk you want to take. Second is, you said earlier, Jim, you got to be able to show how much income you're going to get every year and where each income source is going to come from for as long as you live. You have to be able to show the tax implications and how much tax you're going to pay as you're drawing the money out, which will be significantly lower than you ever thought. You have to show how much fees you're currently paying and what the fees with the new plan will be. Then you have to be able to show how much money is going to be left when you're gone. And if you have that in writing, how does that then help specifically for the topic today? How does having a plan writing help them avoid common money mistakes?
It helps tremendously. And I don't think listeners really understand the power behind having this plan, because what happens, Dan, is that a lot of people that have investments, they're either doing it themselves, they're picking some funds or some stocks, and they kind of just hang in there and they hope it's going to work out okay. Or they have an advisor they've been working with for a long, long time, and they look at that advisor as a friend. Or they call them up on the phone after they listen to us. They say, well, am I going to be okay? And what do you think the advisor is going to tell you? You're going to say you're going to be fine. But they don't have a plan in place. And if you don't have a plan in place and you're just looking at your statements and taking income off your assets each month and each year, and you're hoping you have enough income, and when the market adjusts, you start to panic. And what happens, Dan, is people look at their iPhones all day long, and if the market goes up, they're afraid to take money out, or more money out, because what if the market goes down? And the market goes down, they're afraid to take money out because what if it keeps on going down? And they're always concerned about that. They don't have a plan. They just look at their statements or they look at their iPhone all day long.
Well, think about it. The number one fear retirees have is running out of money before they die. And I think a lot of people think that means running out of assets, but it really means running out of income. Because if you had a $300,000 pension and you had no assets, would you really worry about money much if $300,000 was coming in every year without you having to worry and would last for as long as you live?
Nope.
People just don't worry at that point. We worry because we're afraid of what's going to happen if our income runs out. And the income portion is just so key in developing an overall plan. So you have to know where the income is going to come from inside of your plan. And tied in with that fear of running out of money is, if you haven't retired, then your fear is, how in the heck do I replace my paychecks? Because if you're working, making 200 grand a year, you're not worrying, you can cover all your expenses. But what happens once you retire and all you're going to be getting is $40,000 in Social Security? Mm-hmm. Now, how in the heck do you use your $2 million or $3 million of assets to create enough income that will last for as long as you live and let you live the retirement lifestyle you want without worrying about running out?
Well, everybody does worry. And I think what they do is they get caught up in maybe this umbrella of thinking that everything's going to work out no matter what. And we hope it does. We really do. But unless you have a full plan in place, working out is just kind of based on hope and luck. It's no different than building a house. If you can go out and build a home, right, you can either do it yourself and hire a contractor, and he says he can put up the home and he'll make some adjustments along the way, and you hope it's going to work out right. And if you're lucky, maybe it will work out. Or alternatively, you can go out and hire an architect, right, and an engineer, and have them architect a plan. You can look at it before you start the building. You can make adjustment to the room sizes. You can make adjustments to the pitch of the roof. You can make adjustments to maybe the outside landscaping based on what he's put together. And you can make those changes so that when you do start to build the home, the build is going to be constructed correctly. It's no different with your retirement. I mean, you have to have a plan in place. You just can't have a bunch of statements or hope it's going to work out, Dan.
Well, and if you'd like to find out about how to create the first steps in an actual written plan, just dial pound 250 on your cell phone, say the keyword money, and we'll be glad to meet with you and go over what are those steps that are needed to just start the process. And always starts with education. It doesn't start with you giving an advisor your money. You never give the advisor your money until you have an actual plan in writing that will make you feel comfortable that everything's going to work out from that point going forward. I'm not sure where we are with time, Sam, because my clock was screwed up. I didn't do it right. Should we end there? Keep going a little bit.
No, that was perfect.
Okay, I just guessed.
I had no idea.
Well, because he
but
said 2 minutes at 9:45, so I figured it was right about.
Yeah,
time.
I just started afterwards because I forgot I was trying to do the same thing.
No, I screwed up.
So do we have one at 9?
9 now, 9876.
Yeah,
What did you say, Sam?
It was probably like 20 seconds over, but I build in 30 seconds of wiggle room to each one. So.
You're back with the Peak Financial Freedom Hour. Dan, Ahmad, Jim Files here. And today we're talking about common money mistakes that people make. Sometimes they don't know they're making them. Sometimes they realize they did make them. But for money and planning and your sanity, we know the number one thing you're trying to do is avoid making these common money mistakes. And we're here to help you avoid making those common money mistakes, because if you're 20 or 30, you can make a big mistake and you have huge amount of time to make up for it. A lot of people regret things they did 20 or 30 years ago, but in most cases, it has no bearing on their success. The problem is if you're within 5 years before you're planning to retire, or if you're in retirement and you make a big money mistake, you might not recover. In fact, there's a higher probability you won't recover, simply because you don't have time on your side. You're not making the salary. You're not saving money on a monthly basis, all those reasons. So we're going to talk about these things. The first, number one, we talked about earlier was biggest common money mistake is not having a plan. And I'm going to give a couple statistics and then we'll jump into the second one. But in the last 40 years, if we've interviewed 4,000 people as far as where they were, new potential prospects, where they were in their finances, what they were thinking, what they wanted to do, giving them a free second opinion, only 3 of those had full written retirement income plans that we would consider adequate to putting them in a position. Think about that. 3 out of 4,000 really means no one had it. So that's one of the big reasons why people worry, is they don't have a plan. But how about this one? Here's a common money mistake, Jim. In fact, talk about this one based on where the market's valued here using the Shiller ratio, because what if someone makes a mistake of ignoring stock market warning signs?
Well, it means that same thing's going to happen that happened in 2001 and 2 when we had the technology bubble. The market was an all-time high, it dropped 53%. So just imagine you had $1 million, you just lost $530,000 of value to your portfolio. And again, it happened in 2007, 8, and 9. That was a financial crisis. The market dropped 57%. So again, if you had $1 million, you're down $574,000. We're in a bubble right now. The market's at an all-time high. Will it go up? Yeah, it could go up. Will it go down? Definitely. When, we don't have any idea. But you better have a plan in place to prepare you so that in advance of it going down significantly, you have a plan to make sure that you've mitigated some or a great deal of that risk. And you can do that. You have the ability to do that. And that's what we do here every day. We can't get rid of risk. If you're in the stock market, you have risk. What we're trying to do is mitigate that risk substantially so that when this does happen, when the market does crash, and it will at some point in time, you're in a position where you lost a lot less money than you would have lost if you're not positioned correctly.
Well, and you might be sitting there right now saying, oh, the market's great, I'm making a lot of money, I don't want to get out, which we understand that. The problem is that's the attitude to have when we're 25 or 30. If you look at Nobel Prize winning laureate Robert Shiller, he's created what's called the CAPE ratio, and it's a way to figure out price to earnings. And I know that term gets thrown out at you, but we try to educate you. Price to earnings simply means the value of a stock as compared to how much profit the company's making per share of stock. So let's say if the company's making $10 of profit for every share of stock that's issued, and the normal, since 1871, the normal price to earnings ratio should be 17. That means the stock should be at $170, which is a fair price. It's not too high, it's not too low. It's where it should be. The problem is right now, that ratio sits at almost 37. That means that same $170 stock right now is actually worth 370, not 170, but 370. Think about what that means. It means we have a huge bubble brewing right now. And if you go back through history, it's only happened 5 other times in history where that ratio has gone above 30. And every time it's happened, every single time it's happened, the stock market at some subsequent point has dropped between 20 and 89%. So if that's what's happened every time, should you have a carefree attitude? Oh, don't worry, nothing's going to happen. Or should you think, oh my gosh, I better plan for the worst case scenario? Because at this point in your life, you cannot plan for the best case scenario. You have to plan for the worst case scenario.
You know, getting back to that, Dan, it's such valuable information. It is so clearly stated. This is a Nobel Prize winner. This is an economist. He's a professor, and he's done this study for years and years and years.
He has no skin in the game.
None. No. He's not trying to sell you anything other than, hey, folks.
The truth.
Exactly. Hey, folks, this has happened 5 different times in history. Every single time the market has dropped between 20% and 82%?
89.
89%.
Well, I think, isn't he saying, wake up, people?
Yeah, wake up, people. Why would you not take and heed that information? It doesn't mean you stick all your money in the bank right now. What it means is that you meet with a firm that understands this and puts together a plan to make sure you deliberately invest those assets in places where it's going to mitigate that risk, because it's going to happen.
Well, and right now, think about it. I want you to answer this one. Right now, I think most people intuitively know this.
Yep.
I think they know this, and then it's inside of them, and they're like, we don't know this. We don't know this. I can prove that you know it, because are you right now worried about your money, the stock market, the world, everything that's going on, your retirement? Are you worried? And if you're worried, it means intuitively you know it. You just don't know the specifics, but you know it.
No, you know it, but you keep on thinking, because for 45 years you've been taught to stay in it, stay the course, don't get out no matter what happens. And you've been taught that, right? And it's ingrained in your mindset, and you think that it's always going to work out. And we hope it does always work out. But again, for the last 45 years, when you were 25, 30, 35, 40, and 45 years of age, if the market crashed by 50%, 2 things. Number 1, you had less money to lose. And number 2, you were younger. You had recovery time. But now all of a sudden, if you're getting close to retirement or you're in retirement, the game has changed significantly. And if you lose half your money now, or even 30% of your money now, how long will it take to get back to even? And will you ever get back to even? And what if you're pulling income off those assets to supplement your Social Security income in retirement, and the market goes down 20, 30, 40, 50%? I can assure you, you likely will never recover. And I can assure you, you'll be very stressed out.
Well, the problem is, though, we always talk about, anyone listening right now, they don't think they have that much risk that we're talking about in their portfolio. They think, oh, that's someone else. Intuitively, they know, because they watch their portfolio go up and down, but they really don't want to admit that, because if you're 60, 65, or 70, and you have to admit that you have 50% risk in your portfolio, you're going to freak out, not be able to sleep 1 minute during the nighttime. So we find, rather than sticking our head in the sand like an ostrich, we find it's better to find out how much risk are we really taking. Meaning, if we go through another 2008 financial crisis, how much would our current assets go down by? And that's valuable data, because you don't want to find that information out after the market's crashed and you've lost 50%. You want to find out right now, and you can do that for free. There's no cost. We will do a free risk analysis for you. No obligation. You don't have to work with us. We'll just tell you exactly how much risk you're taking. Just dial pound 250 on your cell phone and say the keyword money. Pound 250 and say the keyword money, and find out how much risk. Now, how does that make people feel once they find out the risk they're taking?
It actually blows them away. First of all, it blows them away, because they have no idea whatsoever they ever had this much risk. Whether they have an advisor or they don't have an advisor, they've never had a risk assessment ever done on their portfolio. And number 2, they're educated. So if you want to be educated, as Dan mentioned, dial pound 250 on your cell phone and say the keyword money.
Nice. I like reinforcing the call to action. And Jim, I really liked the comparison to building a house.
Yeah, that's always good.
Okay.
Okay, 7. Alexi, she texted me. She just did I tell you what happened with her one job? So she got interviewed for a position at Mesa, which was double the pay increase. It was assistant city attorney. And she went in and she talked to the people before. It was really nice. And then they had 17 attorneys. And then she's like, she went home. She had to sleep for 3 hours. She was so stressed. She was stressed the whole week. And she's like, okay, forget it. They said, we'll call you if you're going to get the second interview. Instead, Monday, they called her and said, you got the job.
Oh, wow.
Awesome. And she said, fuck you.
Oh, she did?
Yeah. In a nice way. She said, nope, I'm not doing it. You guys were brutal to me. 17 people in the room just throwing things. And they're like, so she's told the HR person, but now she has other applications out. She goes, I just tried to call back. I got an interview for the director of student engagement at ASU. I applied Friday and they already scheduled an interview.
Oh, that'd be a fun job.
That would be perfect.
That'd be a great job.
That would be the best thing. So.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Shit happens for a reason.
Yep.
All right. We're on number 7 minutes. You're back with Dan Ahmad and Jim Files, the Peak Financial Freedom Hour. And today we are talking about avoiding common money mistakes that many people make, especially many people that are in retirement or planning to retire make, simply because they keep doing the same things when they're 60 or 65 that they did when they're 35 or 40 with their money, which is a sheer recipe for disaster. You cannot do the same things because you're in a different time period now. And I think that takes us into our number 3 mistake. First mistake was not having an actual written plan. Second was ignoring stock market warning signs. How about this one? Ignoring a large loss right before or during retirement. A lot of people call that the retirement red zone, and you can call it whatever you want. But we always state that 5 years before you retired and while you're retired, you're in a completely different time frame and strategy period than you were before that. Why is that? Well, there's 2 stages of money in retirement planning. There's what's called stage 1, asset accumulation. When you're working, you're making a salary, you're okay with losses and volatility. You don't need the assets for income. You're trying to get maximum growth and you have time on your side. And that's great. That's what you should. You should be as aggressive as your stomach will allow you to be while you're accumulating assets all the way up until 5 years before you retire. 5 years before you retire and during retirement, you now have to transition into stage 2, Jim, which is asset preservation and income distribution. And why is that different than stage 1?
Well, again, at stage 1, you're likely working. You're making contributions to your 401k plan every 2 weeks. You're younger. You have a paycheck. And you can take risks, as you mentioned, Dan, and you probably should be taking more risks than you would as you get older, because as you get older, you should be lessening that risk, particularly when you're within that 5 years of retirement or in retirement. You got to figure out, okay, now all of a sudden you've made the money, you have the growth in your portfolio, you have more money because you're older in your retirement plan. Now you have to say, how do I protect that? Because you're older, if you lose a lot of money, you don't have the same recovery time because you're going to be retired at some point, or you are retired and you're not making contributions or dollar cost averaging into your retirement plan. So you have to preserve those assets because those assets are going to be used for income to supplement your other income sources in retirement. And if you lose a lot of money because the market goes down because you didn't heed this information or this advice, it's going to be very painful. So you just have to make sure you understand that you are, again, if you're getting close to retirement or in retirement, you are in the asset preservation stage and the income generation stage.
Well, think about it. Do you right now, if you're 60, do you want to go for maximum growth with maximum risk? And if you say yes, then there's nothing we can do for you until you decide that you don't want that. If instead you say, well, right now I've accumulated my most assets, I want to preserve my assets against large losses, and I want to create as much income as I can as long as it won't run out. So we're not telling you to get rid of going with that maximum mentality. What we're telling you is you have to shift the maximum mentality from when you were young, maximum growth, to now being close to retirement and retirement to maximum income. So if you go for maximum income versus maximum growth, what's that going to do to affect your lifestyle? What's that going to do to affect you being able to do the things you want? Well, it comes down to, Jim, we talk about this a lot. Income equals lifestyle. And lifestyle is why you saved all the money in the first place, so that you could use it to have a wonderful retirement.
Yeah, it's really cool because right now, at this point in time, where we're at with interest rate sensitivity, there are products out right now, depending on whether or not you want immediate income or you want to defer for 2, 3, 4, or 5 years. You can get up, depending on how long you defer, up to 8, 10, even 12% income distributions off your asset base. And to put that in perspective, let's say you had a CD and you're getting 4% income off that asset base, which is not permanent. It can go away whenever the Fed's lower interest rates in the future is going to keep on going down. You can lock in these high distribution rates that will never end for the rest of your life. We haven't seen this data in decades.
Well, 40 years, the rates on average are higher now than they've ever been in 40 years. And I have an actual example, so I'm glad you brought that up. This past week, I had a client come in. We are just finalizing their plan after multiple meetings. They're going to have $1 million that they want to allocate to the bucket for the income because they don't have pensions. They get about $60,000 a year of Social Security, and that's it. They have about $2 million of assets, so we're going to use $1 million to create income. The $1 million to create income If we defer it for 5 years and we use some of the other money during that 5 years, we'll get them an 11.7% payout of the million. They'll get $117,000 a year guaranteed jointly for as long as they both live. Think about that. That's almost $10,000 a month. If one of them lives to 120, they'll keep getting the payments. Why in the heck won't people want that kind of thing? And we find they do. They just don't know it's out there or it's available.
I've never ever met a client that's come into our office, and we've dealt with thousands of people over the years that understood this concept. They've never been presented to this concept before.
Well, they've been presented with the concept, keep your money in the stock market, hang in there, write it out. If it goes down, you can't take any money out until it comes back, etc. But they've never been taught this concept.
Yeah, but look at this process here, right? They came in, they wanted a plan. When we put together all the objectives they were trying to accomplish, we looked at their other income sources, and they needed this extra $100,000 a year. So you get two choices. You can pull it off your portfolio, and it might work. But when the market goes down and you're pulling off $117,000 a year off $1 million, you're likely going to run out of money pretty quickly. Or you can restructure your portfolio, allocate money to this type of income product, and know for the rest of your life, and if you're married, for the rest of your joint lives, this income is categorically and contractually guaranteed forever. You still have money in the stock market. You still had another $1 million. You can be as aggressive as you want to be because your income needs are taken care of.
Because even if they lose, if they invested aggressively, they lose a big chunk of that $1 million in the stock market, they still have the $120,000 coming in guaranteed for as long as they live. So what's there to worry about at that point?
There isn't. And you can write it out then. Then on that $1 million, you can write it out because your income needs are satisfied. But people don't get it, Dan.
Well, it's called basically the diversification of assets between income and growth, right?
Exactly. But for some reason, and I don't say for some reason, it's because it's hard for us to identify and really articulate with clarity over the radio here exactly how this works. But when people see this, they're blown away every single time.
You're back with Dan and Jim, the Peak Financial Freedom Hour. And today we are talking about avoiding common money mistakes. And I think it's one of the biggest fears we have because most people don't understand a lot about their money or finances. And we are so afraid we're going to make a mistake that not just will be a small mistake we can make up for, but will literally ruin our retirement. And we're here to tell you there are mistakes you can make that would ruin your retirement. We talked about how to avoid some of these things. We talked about not having an actual plan in writing, ignoring stock market warning signs. We talked about incurring a large loss right before or during retirement. So all those things are problems. Well, how about this one? One of the problems I see in retirement, you see in retirement, is that people have regrets that they haven't used their money for the things they want at an early enough age to be able to have fun and benefit from it.
We see that all the time. And we also see the question that comes up all the time whereby people say, well, listen, I've entered retirement. I'm in my early 60s or mid 60s, and I want income now. I want income to do the things I want to do. So those people are proactive. But the other people that have been reactive have not positioned themselves correctly. Now they're in their 70s and they weren't able to do the things they wanted to do because they didn't have enough income. They're worried about the stock market. They're worried about losses. They're worried about inflation. They're worried about all these things because they didn't have a plan in place to solve those issues before they started investing those monies, Dan.
No, definitely. Well, let's look at then this specific portion of this concept, and that is people are told, or you think, and you're either told by your advisor, your CPA, you should defer taking distributions from your IRA until age 73. So let's say you're 65 now or 60, and you talk to your CPA, they say, oh, because of taxes, wait until 73 when you have to take out your required minimum distributions from your IRA because of taxes. You'll pay less taxes between now and 73, which is true. Or your advisor says, oh, wait until 73 because that's when you have to take money out of your IRAs. Well, at that point, we think the advisor is telling you to do that because they don't want the value to go down because then they make less fees. But in reality, if you defer from age, let's say 60 to 73, 13 years, and you have $1 million now, you might have $2 million or more then just with a small growth rate. Well, does it make sense to defer your IRA distributions now to have more money in there when they force you to take distributions out? Think about that. Do you really want to have more money in there when they force you to take distributions out? And do you think 13 years down the road, tax rates will be lower or higher? I think there's a better probability tax rates will be higher. So we look at that financially, but we also look at it emotionally. At 60 or 65, can you spend the money easier than when you're 73? And the answer is yes, because you're going to be healthier. You're going to want to do these things. Both of you are around now. Who knows if one of you will be gone later? So you have to do the things now. The key is going to be to do what we call a levelization, levelize the income out of your IRA for a longer time period, because then you'll be taking a smaller amount out over a longer time period. And then, Jim, does that then calculate out to higher taxes or lower taxes?
It always calculates out as lower taxes, right? Because you're equalizing those payments over a longer period of time and upfront. And a lot of people, Dan, when we say required minimum distributions, they may not quite understand that. What that means is if you have a 401k or a 403b or any type of retirement plan, an IRA, the government says that when you turn 73, they are mandating that you take out a certain percentage every single year until you die. And if there's any money left, the children or the beneficiaries have to take that over a 10-year period, which means every single year they're mandating by law that you have to take out more and more and more and more money. So Dan's a tax expert here. We have tax counseling here in our office. We have an enrolled agent. Besides, Dan was an enrolled agent for over 30 years. We can provide tax advice, whereas most brokerage companies and advisors don't have that ability. And unless you truly understand this, you will end up paying more taxes.
Well, and I think that's what people get lulled into, that just a simple thing like deferring will reduce taxes. Well, it will. From 60 to 73 or 65 to 73, you will not be taking distributions. You won't pay taxes. But the issue is, what tax rate are you going to pay anyway? And when you look at the tax rate you're going to pay during retirement, it's not going to be as much as we think. Why? Well, when you work, if you make $200,000, let's say you make $18,000 a month of gross income, you usually net about half of that, because you're paying into Social Security, you're contributing your maximum to 401ks, 457 or 403bs, you're paying federal and state tax. All that ends up taking away about half your money. So you assume at retirement, you're still going to only get about half of your gross income. It's not going to work that way. Let's assume you have $180,000 of gross income at retirement. So $15,000 a month, which is less than what you were making before at $18,000 a month. On your $15,000 a month, you're going to pay about 20% in taxes. So that means you're going to pay about $3,000 in taxes for federal and state. And you're going to be left with $12,000 in net income while you're retired on $15,000 of gross income versus $9,000 of income before. So can you live a happier retirement on $12,000 than $9,000?
Of course you can. But again, unless you do tax planning, unless you do income planning, unless you're doing it with a firm that can actually do these calculations and actually provide the advice, you run naked out there, right? You worry. But if you put a plan together, Dan, and we see this every single day with people that come in, call us from the radio show or call us from our TV show, they're astounded when they actually put these numbers in writing, and they can actually see in many, if not most cases, they're going to have more net income after tax when they're retired if they position these assets correctly.
For more information about Peak Financial Freedom Group or to schedule a consultation, just go to our website, peakfin.com. That's peakfin.com. And thanks for watching.